Today, the Supreme Court heard its oral arguments around the ruling that the Colorado Supreme Court made on December 19th, which disqualified Trump from appearing on the March 5th primary ballot. We're going to play you a few clips from today that are really great, as well as from the hearing, and this really brilliant analogy that was made on CNN and comparison by Van Jones in just a second. But first, a little bit of context. The Colorado Supreme Court based their disqualification of Trump on the Constitution's 14th Amendment, particularly Section 3, which essentially bars individuals who engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the United States from holding public office. Notably, Clarence Thomas did not recuse himself from today's case, despite the fact that his wife had a direct role in the January 6th riot, busing rioters to the Capitol beforehand. She had a direct role in funding and organizing the Stop the Steal efforts through this nonprofit C4 Political Action Committee. But Clarence Thomas did not feel the need to recuse himself, no conflict of interest there. A lot of people think that he should have recused himself. I happen to agree, but clearly he's not going to. Now, before I show you these clips from today, I want to actually take a look at the 14th Amendment's language, because it's fairly brief and actually pretty straightforward to understand. No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state, who, having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or as a member of any state legislature or as an executive or judicial officer of any state, to support the Constitution of the United States, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. Now, in the Supreme Court's deliberations, it does in fact appear that a majority of justices are leaning towards rejecting the decision of the Colorado Supreme Court to remove Trump from the ballot. During the hearing, both conservatives and liberal justices expressed their concerns about kind of the broader implications of allowing states to disqualify presidential candidates, essentially saying that this could potentially disenfranchise voters and affect the presidential election. And obviously, if he's not going to be able to appear on the ballot, it clearly would affect the presidential election. Now, this case is really important because it does have nationwide implications and essentially would set the precedent for similar cases that are being heard around the country. Maine, as you may know, already also barred Trump from appearing on its ballot, and that decision is also pending the outcome of this case. So if Republicans rule against Colorado, or if the Supreme Court rules against Colorado here, they'd essentially bar states from being able to block Trump from appearing on the ballot. So here's a clip of the hearing of Justice Jackson questioning Trump's lawyer in the hearings today, where his lawyers essentially say that Trump played no role in organizing the events of January 6th.
All right, final question. The Colorado Supreme Court concluded that the violent attempts of the petitioner's supporters in this case to halt the count on January 6th qualified as an insurrection, as defined by Section 3, and I read your opening brief to accept that those events counted as an insurrection, but then your reply seemed to suggest that they were not. So what is your position as to that?
We never accepted or conceded in our opening brief that this was an insurrection. What we said in our opening brief was President Trump did not engage in any act that can plausibly be characterized as insurrection.
All right, so why would this not be an insurrection? What is your argument that it's not? Your reply brief says that it wasn't because I think you say it did not involve an organized attempt to overthrow the government. So
that's one of many reasons. But for an insurrection, there needs to be an organized, concerted effort to overthrow the government of the United States through violence. And this
so
riot
the point is that a chaotic effort to overthrow the government is not an insurrection?
No, we didn't concede that it's an effort to overthrow the government either, Justice Jackson. Right? None of these criteria were met. This was a riot. It was not an insurrection. The events were shameful, criminal, violent, all of those things, but it did not qualify as insurrection, as that term is used in Section 3.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, counsel.
Thank you.
So there you have it. Trump's lawyer essentially saying they're not going to concede that there was an insurrection, but also that the events that transpired weren't really organized by President Trump. Now, here are some clips of President Trump speaking on January 6th, addressing the crowd that would eventually go and storm the Capitol. You be the judge of whether this constitutes organizing an insurrection.
Now it is up to Congress to confront this egregious assault on our democracy. And after this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down. We're going to walk down anyone you want, but I think right here we're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women, and we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them, because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong.
You'll never take back this country with weakness. You have to show strength. Certainly seems to me like it was an insurrection, but the Supreme Court does seem poised to strike down Colorado's ruling, essentially saying that they can't be the judge and the juror of whether Trump committed this insurrection. So it would, in fact, be a lot different, at least in the eyes of the court, if Trump were actually convicted of insurrection first. Then they could say it's like, okay, we're not debating whether Trump organized an insurrection. That issue has been resolved, and a jury of his peers has convicted him. He's been convicted of insurrection. That would change a lot and probably lead the court, at least those on the court who are impartial, towards upholding Colorado's ruling. So now I want to play for you this brilliant clip of Van Jones on CNN today that I think does a pretty good job of dissecting one of the big issues here.
So let's bring in CNN senior political commentators Van Jones and Scott Jennings. Van, even the justices appointed by Democratic presidents seem skeptical of many of the arguments being put forward by the Colorado attorneys. If Trump wins this case, it would be a political win as well.
Yeah, political win for him, obviously. Look, I mean, the big news today, Trump had a good lawyer. That was interesting to watch. Other than that, it's been almost like a foregone conclusion, which I think is very frustrating for a lot of people. This is a Supreme Court that seems very strong when it's time to take rights away from women. Very strong. When it's time to take diversity program away from college kids, very, very strong. Voting rights away from Americans, very, very strong. But now it's time to disenfranchise a disenfranchiser, and they're just looking for the exits. They can come up with an excuse to do whatever they want to, but on this one, they were trying to find any way not to do what I think a normal person looking at would say if Barack Obama sent 10,000 Black Lives Matter people to destroy a joint session of Congress, he'd be in jail and he couldn't run for president again. It's just bizarre to me to watch the system continue to bend over backwards as he plays his chicken game with our system. He is playing a game of chicken, and every institution swerves, including the Supreme Court.
Think about that. If Obama had lost his reelection and then stood on a stage on January 6th, a few blocks from the Capitol, after telling everyone to get to D.C. on that day, that Congress was supposed to certify the election, but instead that they were Black Lives Matter rioters, not Oath Keepers, not Proud Boys. Do you think this might shake out a little bit differently? Do you think Republicans would change their tune? Because Republicans now are essentially saying that this is in the best interests of the country and that we need to overrule the Colorado Supreme Court and just leave it up to the people, which is pretty much a different tune from the one they always sing, which is that, oh, we need to stick directly to the Constitution and whatever the Constitution says goes. And, you know, the Constitution. Whereas in this case, they're pretty much finding every non-legal justification that Colorado's ruling should be overturned. Oh, it's in the best interest for the election. It's this, it's that. We need to leave this up to the people, but not really sticking to what the Constitution says, which, as I showed you earlier, the text is pretty clear. Here's what Van Jones had to say about that.
I think that's probably where we're headed. I think that's perfectly fine. But I just want to point out, constitutional conservatives who screamed all during the Obama years about how much they loved the Constitution, hugged the Constitution, wanted to keep the Constitution like a teddy bear, Suddenly now they're radical Democrats. They say, oh, we just want the American people to do whatever they want to. We don't believe that you have these constitutional guardrails to make sure that democracy doesn't elect popular, crazy people. Democracy can elect popular, crazy people, popular criminals. John Gotti might have been elected president. Who knows? But you have a constitution to make sure that certain people, they're too young, they weren't born here, they're treasonous traitors, can't become president. And suddenly, the Constitution doesn't matter to conservatives. As long as Donald Trump can continue his march, his runaway train back into power, all principles go out the window. It's just bizarre to watch.
I personally think Van Jones makes a great point. You constantly hear Republicans, oh, the Constitution, it needs to be adhered to as it's written. And in this case, if it were Obama on trial, they'd be saying, look at the 14th Amendment, look at Section 3. This is what it was designed for. Insurrection or rebellion, you can't hold office. Obama never tried to overturn an election, so we'll never know. But I think we all know that Republicans, if the shoe were on the other foot, would be singing a different tune. Now, right after the Supreme Court deliberations, President Trump gave a statement. He issued one publicly. We're going to play that for you now. He was defiant as usual. Play the clip.
In watching the Supreme Court today, I thought it's a very beautiful process. I hope that democracy in this country will continue. Because right now we have a very, very tough situation with all of the radical left ideas, with the weaponization of politics. They weaponize it like it's never been weaponized before. It's totally illegal, but they do it anyway. And it has to stop. Every one of the court cases that I'm involved, every single one, civil, whether it's the attorney generals or the district attorneys. You look at Fani in Georgia. They had many meetings with the White House and with the DOJ. They went there, 8-hour meetings. That was all staged. That was a phony hoax. And now you look at it, and it is a phony hoax. And hopefully that case will be dismissed in short order. It's a disgrace to this country. But they work together with the Justice Department and the White House, and not supposed to do that. Every one of these cases you see comes out of the White House. It comes out of Biden. It's election interference, and it's really very sad. I thought the presentation today was a very good one. I think it was well received. I hope it was well received. You have millions of people that are out there wanting to vote, and they happen to want to vote for me or the Republican Party, or whatever you want to, however you want to phrase it. But I'm the one running, and we are leading in every poll. We're leading in the local polls, in the state polls, and we're leading in the swing state polls, and we're leading very big in the national polls. So it's been a very great honor.
Per usual, with Trump, everything is a political persecution and election interference. He is on tape trying to get the Georgia Secretary of State to find him 12,000 votes. Can you find me 12,000 votes? That's all I need. That was, of course, a hoax. That was, of course, political, as he would say. The E. Jean Carroll case, where he was convicted of defamation and sexual assault. That's just a political persecution also. His insurrection case, we didn't really hear him say, go to the Capitol, take back your country. You have to show strength. You'll never take back your country with weakness. That's all just political also. So it's really just par for the course and not too surprising, but it's still absolutely shameful. This is someone who never fails to take no responsibility for any of his actions and is constantly blaming everyone else for everything that's happening to him. For Really American, I'm Justin Horwitz. Please be sure to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're going to be doing a ton going into the election. You don't want to miss it. Thanks so much.